What is the Pacific Institution course all about?
The Pacific Institute was created by Lou Tice. Lou Tice was a school teacher who decided that he would do motivational workshops. And over the years, what he developed was a very effective way of helping people come into their own. Everybody has some kind of barrier that they have to get over. Sometimes it's a bad relationship, sometimes it's a desire to do more, sometimes it's a desire to leave the city that they live in. But the more we know about ourselves, the easier it is for us to change our circumstances. So essentially, what the Pacific Institute does through affirmations, through personal insight, and through a certain form of coaching is it allows people to get out of their comfort zone and move into a place where they can be far more productive. They can achieve their full potential. That essentially is what the Pacific Institute does with their Breaking Barriers workshop. There are essentially 13 parts to the whole workshop. And it starts out by really finding out why people showed up. And one size doesn't fit all, so most of these classes that I teach, it's the same material, but it has to be dished up and put together so that it will work for the client base. Sometimes people come in who've earned $100,000 a year. Sometimes people come in who've owned 3 or 4 houses. Sometimes people come in who've been in prison. Sometimes people come in who are trying to go to college and can't figure out how to continue going to their classes. So we give out the information and start off by finding out just exactly what the barrier is. Once we find out what the barrier is, then we start asking people if they understand how they get to be the way they are. And from there, we go all the way through 10 other phases. And it is a pure method of developing sort of a self-help thing with the assistance of the Pacific Institute.
When an individual will walk through those doors, and they want to they want to become part of the class, go through the course, what's your first assessment of them?
After doing the workshop for a while and after working in social services on this level with a variety of clients, you see things in people's posture, you hear things in their voice, you see things in the way they present themselves in terms of the way their hair is cut or the way that they're dressed. There are a lot of nonverbals that come across. And while I may be looking closely, I'm always non-judgmental because eventually before the class is over with, clients have a way of telling you not only what they want you to know, but asking you for a certain kind of assistance in where they're going. So really what I look for is I look for a willingness to participate in the class. That's all they need to have is a willingness to participate in the class. Once the class starts, clients readily understand that it is an environment full of compassion where you can open up and for 40 hours get involved in self-discovery. But they merely need to show up and just be willing. And that's what I'm looking for.
Are there any special needs that you notice after talking with them and maybe a couple of days in the classes? Are there any examples that you can think of?
Recently, one of the things that I've noticed, and this has been an older population, is that all of a sudden someone who was either very successful or as successful as they wanted to be, that person looks around and realizes that they're not doing what they used to do and they don't feel quite as confident. Self-esteem and poor self-image seems to come through for this recent set of participants. And we've had people come in from Barcelona, we've had people come in from Atlanta, Georgia, and a self-esteem issue shows up very quickly when we start doing certain things in the class. One of my objectives is to get everyone in front of the class, either discussing something personal or discussing the material from the class. An impromptu speech has got to be the most difficult thing for anybody. You're sitting in a room full of people that you know. You've been talking with these people, you've been eating lunch with them, and then when the moment comes that you have to stand up and say something either dignified or something structured, there's a certain amount of fear that comes into the picture. I use that moment of fear to challenge them to go ahead and step outside of the box. If they can do it in conversation, they can do it in their business place. If they can do it in conversation in front of a group, they can do it in their relationship. So I find out if they're willing to communicate on that level, and most people have a problem communicating.
How do you get them motivated? Is there,
The easiest way to motivate most people who don't get attention is to allow them to see how special they are. And what Mr. Tice says over and over and over again in the first part of the workshop is that you are special. Not only are you special, I'm going to show you just how special you are. When people get real involved in the specialness of themselves, that's when they start getting motivated. So I just need them to know in the very beginning that you have capabilities, skills, and talents that you're not using. And I use little ways to get them to use the talents. Some very simple questions about things they're not even thinking about, information that they've stored away in the back of their minds. I mean, it could be, it could be asking them who is Edgar Allan Poe? Do you know any of the poems that he wrote? This information comes to people in strange ways. But I'll say Edgar Allan Poe, and maybe 4 or 5 people will raise their hand up. They don't even know where that came from. It also gives them some idea of just exactly how the mind works. You're taking in information, positive and negative, about yourself all day long. If you concentrate on the positive, you will probably yield some positive results. In fact, you will. If you concentrate on the negative, you're going to yield up some negative results. You take in information about books, about architecture, whatever it is, you will find that that information is still there. It's not going to go away. So that's another way of showing them how special they are. The mind holds information, and when you need it, something draws the memory to it, something familiar brings back the information. We have all kinds of information in our heads. So that's another thing Mr. Tice does. He lets people know just how smart they are.
Is there any way to measure the true success of the program, and how would you do that?
Well, there's some empirical stuff you can do. I mean, you can track the clients after they leave, and you're going to see that most of them go home and do some things they've never done before. Some of them get the jobs that they're looking for. Some of them even open up businesses. But in the 40-week run, the best indicator is posture, the smile on the face, the interaction with people here at the Urban League, and for people who see them when they come in. Those same people noticing them on the day that they graduate. That's evidence that there is some kind of change. The change has to be backed up with support, but also with affirmations and a daily desire to be better than they were the day before. But you can notice that. I mean, that's readily noticeable at the end of the week, sometimes by the middle of the week.
Why this particular course? I know there are other courses out there. Tell me why you chose this course.
I think that when I look at the material and I consider how long ago he put the material together, it's kind of like looking at biblical information. The Bible is good ages after ages after ages after ages. And what Mr. Tice did here almost 30 years ago is something that dealt with the heart and core of human beings. Here we are today with all this potential, and until we find out how to use this human machine, we're going to be in the same place. Well, that's been a dilemma for a long, long time. Napoleon Hill. A lot of different people have constantly tried to get people to achieve the most that they can achieve. Well, Mr. Tice has done this with school teachers. He's done it with basketball players. He's done it with football players. He's done it in 48 different countries. And if it's good enough for those people, then you know it's good enough for our class. So we reach the least common denominator by using the best product. I like it because of that.
What have you learned as a teacher from this class, and how has it helped develop your human development as you continue to teach it?
One of the things that's always interesting about teaching something is that you get better at it. You teach a child how to tie their shoes, you can think of 1,000 different ways to tie your shoes. You teach someone how to shine their shoes, and you're always continuously modifying the whole approach. But when you're dealing with cognitive skills and cognitive development, you can't help but improve yourself, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. My clients come into the classrooms listening to the information and using the information. I can't help but use it along the way because I want to affirm what it is that I'm teaching to them. So I'm a better person as a result of having taught the class. My research takes me beyond what I'm doing so that I can confound it with millions of examples that have happened in the past and that are happening now. The Secret and the Agape, where Reverend Michael is up in Los Angeles, does a lot of this. What's special about this one is that it's off the beaten path, and you don't really expect it when you come in. Most folks that come into the class, they think it's just a job readiness thing. Once we start getting into the nuts and bolts, they realize that if I get involved with this, I'm just not going to be the same. I want to lose weight. I want to build a house. There is a factual and realistic way for a person to visualize what they want, affirm what they want, focus on it, and just keep moving towards it. You want to be a better person, you can just keep moving towards it. We talk about this, but there is no environment where a person can come, sit down, and have someone do 40 hours of nothing but that. Nothing but that. So if you're teaching that, you can't help but be better at the end of it yourself. So I apply to myself what I lay out for the students and for the clients. It's a wonderful class.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
What I'm also finding out is that it works for the youngest mind also. When we talk to the younger population, they bring things to the table that have been modified simply by technology and the newness of our culture. But they're still looking for some of the same things. And occasionally a young person comes through and spends time in the program and gets a spark. And when you see the kid again, it's almost as though they were born again. It's not only for older people, it's not only for lost souls who've made a lot of money and bought houses. It's for anyone who's interested in trying to be better. You want your family to be better, you can be a part of this. You want relatives and neighbors to be able to achieve more, to create a better community. A little bit of this goes a long way. A little bit of this goes a long way. And the bottom line is, everybody's special. We just need to hear it every now and then. Mr. Tice says it over and over again. That's it in a nutshell.